Very excited to have Joel White back with us today, Rewired for Men. Joel, how you doing over there across the pond?
Across the pond, mate, I'm doing fine. It's a miracle over here at this moment. The sun is out. It's a very rarity, but particularly in rainy Manchester where I am, there's something obviously going wrong outside with the nature because
Yeah.
we've got the sun in spring. And at this moment in time, which probably isn't the high for you guys over there, but it's like 23, 24 degrees the last few days. So, yeah, long may it continue. So,
Yeah. Well, that's let's see, 23, 24. I'm trying to do the math and put that into Fahrenheit, because here in America we're not smart enough to figure out all that other stuff. You say 23, 24 degrees
hold
to
on.
us?
Yeah, Google says 75 degrees
There
Fahrenheit.
you go. That's perfect. Yeah. Yeah. See, you say 23, 24 degrees to us, man. We start going, holy man, that's cold. I don't like that stuff. So that's very cold. Hey, Joel, we've got a lot of places that we could go right now because, uh, let's be honest here. We just had Trump just signed a thing calling May Mental Health Awareness Month. I think he was following really the what you over there in the UK put forward, making this Mental Health Awareness Month. But we got to stop with the awareness BS. We got to do more than awareness. Look, I mean, awareness is good as long as you're actually being aware. But we've got too many people who are aware and not doing a damn thing about it, right?
Absolutely, Zach. You know what I mean? It's in the UK, it's got bananas, absolutely gone bananas, where there's literally a new awareness of something every few weeks or every month, and it's just overwhelming. Do you know what I mean? And it just blows your mind. And like you're saying, then, it's great making people aware of it. Then so what? Do you know what I mean? And one of the things we were talking about before we just come live, that in the UK, we're in the middle of Mental Health Awareness Week, and everybody puts up the posters and puts in the social media because they want to be on the bandwagon, and the employers stick the posts on the wall, and the email bulletins go around all the staff, and everybody feels good, and the mental health champions go, yeah, Mental Health Awareness Week, let's raise money for this, or blah blah blah, or the theme in the UK at the moment is community, which is really important. But when that week comes to end, Zach, it's like, yeah, that's it, we've done our bit. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Next.
yeah, and this is, anybody who's listened to the 22-hour podcast, they know what I'm going to say next. And the truth is that, where in World War II we were calling it shell shock, or we were,
Mm,
saying that they were less of, you weren't a man if you let your emotions out, you were less manly, you were, just being a wimp, you were being a wuss. Well, and we gave it the name PTSD. We gave it this beautiful scientific name. But that's where we really left it because the treatment for it's non-existent because I don't want to say it's non-existent, but it doesn't I think the biggest problem with mental health right now, Joel, is very, very simple. People don't want to find the help that they need because there's that stigma attached to it. And we need to break that stigma. That's the main thing we've got to get rid of. We're never going to defeat this if people are going to feel bad about getting help.
yeah, very much so. And, the piece around awareness obviously is important. It's a starting place. But it's like the steps after that is that are really important. That are almost missing in society, right? Aren't always taken into consideration, regardless if you're in America or the UK or anywhere in the world. It's that acceptance going, yeah, I am struggling with whatever you want to put after that.
Mhm.
Or what I sort of say to clients, I'm living with this, whatever the this is. And then actually taking the action, being encouraged by others to take that action. And then the appreciation comes into that, I can do something about it. There's a whole cycle piece there. But literally, we've only just got the first cog, the first stone, and kind of that's it. And like I said, when that starts to get rolled towards the end of your 7 day awareness week, or in your case, your 4 week or 5 week month, just when people just not start to have conversations next, you move
Yeah.
on to the next month or the next
Yeah.
campaign. And it's just really poor because one of the things I was saying to you before is that if these awareness weeks are working, for instance, like I said, we're in Mental Health Awareness Week in the UK. If it is working, why are male suicide rates still so high?
Hmm.
Why are men so in astronomical rates of self-harm, engaging in substance misuse, whatever it is, depression, anxiety? Why are these continuing to rise? Because surely if it was working, these ideas of mental health awareness week or whatever week you want to call it, wouldn't these go down? Surely they would, but obviously they don't because it's obviously not working. It's not enough just to raise awareness. Doesn't do anything.
Yeah, and I when you look at it, Joel, this is almost like when you go to court and if a lawyer says something and the judge looks at the jury and says you need to strike that. You know, strike that from the conversation. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. We've heard for so long you are not a man if you let this bother you.
Yeah,
Now all of a sudden it's okay, but you've heard your entire life you're not allowed to think this way. You're a man, suck it up, rub a little dirt in it. And you're not going to just take and all of a sudden go, oh, okay, screw history. I'm in a new world. That's not the way this goes. And that's one of the reasons why we're still struggling with this.
yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, with that. And again, which comes into a lot of what I do and how I work with men is getting into those unconscious beliefs and working with them. Because if you don't do that, then you ain't going to change the rest of it. And one thing which I'm really passionate about, and I know you are as well, Zach, it's overcoming them so-called stereotypes that are not helpful. Like a real man is somebody who can man up and get on with it and don't show emotion and stiff upper lip or whatever term you want it, or you get the ones like men don't talk or blah blah. They're all garbage. They're not helpful and they're not true. None none of them are true. It just doesn't serve you anymore. You know what I mean? I was speaking to somebody else before, and what I class a real man to be, and I've got a video about this on my website. Real man is somebody who can show emotion, who's present in the conversations that they have, who are not going down the pub getting absolutely smashed out the faces or engaging in risk-taking behaviour. They're emotionally regulated, they're balanced, they're clearer in regards to who they are, their identity, how they show up each day. That's what makes a real man. Somebody who's willing to learn from their mistakes and do things differently. Take responsibility, accountability. That's how I see a real man to be. So someone who admit, hey, I've made a mistake, but I'm going to do this about it instead. That's what's a real man, and that's what we should be striving for in society, and just doing these bloody awareness weeks of blah blah around a certain theme that is great for 1 week, but isn't for the other 51 weeks of the year from that degree.
Let me ask you this question, and I was just kind of thinking about this when you brought up the going out and getting smashed and stuff like that. Having friends and being able to talk to friends is it's a good thing, okay? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not going to tell anybody you shouldn't have friends and you shouldn't talk to friends, but let's be honest here. Friends are that group of people that you can get together with and you can bullshit your way through a lot of stuff. And they're going to stick behind you through a lot of that bullshit. They're going to sit there and they're going to accept some of your the way that you think because they think they know you and they think that's what you need. So a lot of times when we talk to our friends, this can be, I guess what I'm looking, what I'm asking is this one way that you can fool yourself into thinking that I'm talking to somebody is if I'm talking to a friend, even though it's probably not the healthiest conversation to have.
Yeah, and again, that comes in something interesting in the conversation I was having with somebody yesterday around things that, friends, whether they're male or female, they tend to fall into two categories. There's fair weather friends who are kind of there when things are going well, and they
Mm-hmm.
say things that kind of please you. Or there's foul weather friends who stand by you and don't want to just please you. They're upfront. They say as it is that they hold you responsible and accountable. I know which friends I want and what of the individuals I that have around me are the foul weather ones because those are the ones you want in your life. You don't want the vampires who suck you dry or you just want to borrow money off you or you buy them a drink or whatever. It's not healthy. You know what I mean? It's not pulling you up, it's pulling you down. You know what I mean? And what's really important to reflect upon this is it's easy to blame your friends around, in regards to some of the things I've just said, but it's actually important to look at yourself. How are you showing up? How are you showing up in the relationships around you? And more importantly, how are you showing up in the relationship with yourself? Because that relationship you have with yourself and how you show up will influence the friends or the types of friends that you have around you. Do you know what I mean? Because they are a mirror of where you are at in your life. And if you're not happy with some of your friends, then you need to make a change because it
Yeah,
ain't
and
it
it's
ain't working anymore, is it?
yeah, and it's not like you're going to hang around with somebody who's always getting on your ass about the way that you're acting. You're not going to sit there and continue to hang out with somebody who's going to sit there and tell you that everything that you're doing is dumb. I mean, that's not that's not what you're going to seek out in friends. Yeah, we can all say that we don't want to hang out with a bunch of yes men, but none of us want to hang out with a bunch of, hell no men either. Because, I mean that can just bring you down, but you just got to be very, very careful when you talk to a friend that you got to understand, you know, that they're first off, chances are they're not always going to give you what's best for you. Your friends are going to want you to feel better at the end of the day. They're not going to want to send you home and make you think about what you just heard like a therapist a lot of times does. Challenge you to think about what you just heard. They're going to want you to sit there and say, "You know what? I went out with my friend. I had a really good time. We had a talk. I feel so much better." That's the way that's going. A lot of times feeling better is, and especially when it's involving cocktails, it's a temporary, there's temporary sanity there.
Absolutely. Again, which what's really interesting, and again, I don't know how this resonates in the US, but it does in the UK. And I always really challenge myself with this and challenge other people around, what's the most important relationship in your life? And I usually get random things like, my dog, my cat, my wife, my children, blah, blah. And when really, from my own perspective, none of that is important. What's actually important is the relationship you have with yourself.
Yeah.
That should be your number one relationship in your life. Is that what you have? And how often, I was at a really good network meeting today. The woman really nailed something which was fantastic. It's like, you know, when you look in the mirror in the morning, who do you see? Do you know what I mean? Who do you really see? Do you know what I mean? Do you see yourself or do you just brush your teeth and move on? How often do you stand there in the mirror and actually challenges yourself? How is Joel today? How is Joel going to turn up? What's Joel not happy with? What's Joel going to do to change that? How would Joel know if he's done that? Why is that important to Joel? How often do we actually ask these questions to ourselves and challenge ourselves every day? Just one of those questions, just to literally start your day off, is just look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself that. Because I'll let you into a secret, Zach. and we're sure we talked about this before, a lot of the problems we have in our own lives, we create them.
Oh,
The
yeah.
beauty of it is what can we learn from them? And more importantly, who's got the solutions to a lot of the problems? Ourselves. If only we're willing to accept that and take personal responsibility and accountability, we then find that we can then move on. And lo and behold, healthy relationships come along because you start to lift, other people join you on that way. And the ones who pull you down, guess what you got to do with them, Zach? You got to wave bye bye because it's
Yep.
not helping you. They're not serving you anymore.
And accountability is so important. Growing up, I don't know how many times I used the words, yeah, I made a mistake. Or, you know, eh, yeah, or some other BS, statement. When the truth is, you know what? I made a choice. And it
Yeah,
was a terrible choice. And that was something that, there's no mistake about it. I had two paths to walk, at least two paths to walk, and I made the choice to walk down that one path, and that was the wrong path.
yeah,
I, you know, it could have been because I was ill-informed. Usually not. Usually it was just a path of stupidity, and I fully head on ran down that. But that's really something that, accountability has told me, no, you made that choice.
yeah,
You live with that choice. You learn from that choice. That choice did not lead to all the mistakes in your life. How you deal with it now is what's important. You know,
absolutely,
if you keep
absolutely.
looking at that choice, letting that choice ruin your life, then you've got a problem. You need to look at it and say, okay, this is what I did. There's no, God, if I just wouldn't have done that, that doesn't exist. There's no such thing. There's not a life when you can sit there and do the whole I dream of genie thing and it's going to change. Okay, that's not happening. Stop thinking about it. Start, this is what I did. What do I need to do next to make sure, first off, I don't make choices like this anymore? And second off, I take and I can build myself from here.
Absolutely. And there's a phrase that I do challenge myself with every day, and it's this, please forgive me for whatever I've done wrong, knowingly or unknowingly, but give me another opportunity to get it right next time. Because that's what it's like. Anybody can go around and say, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Brilliant. Sorry, but I'm not useful. What's more useful is sorry, and I'm going to do this instead, or give me another opportunity to try it. You know what I mean? That's what's more important. I'd say practicing what you preach and showing up and learning from what you've been doing. That's what's really important, massively.
I just, I really think it's important, and I don't agree with a lot of like the 7 step programs and stuff like that. I don't. They wouldn't be something that I would do myself. Saying this, I have a lot of friends who have went through them, and it is done very well for them. It's one of the reasons why we need to make sure that we're telling everybody about every conceivable healing process out there, like what Joel does. That way, you can make sure that you're giving people informed information, because where the 7 step process isn't for me, it could be for you. And we need to make sure that we're letting people know about that. Okay. I mean, that's so very important. But the one thing that the 7 step process has that I really, really uh, take and believe it's a very important part of your life is making sure that you make it up to other people.
Mm,
You face the people that you've hurt. You really, you take and if you're hiding from someone, if you're hiding from yourself because you made that quote unquote mistake, if you're hiding from yourself saying, you know what, if I don't think about it, it hasn't happened. That's
mm,
dangerous, right?
mm. Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. And it all goes back to that accountability piece. The other thing which comes into it, which is also really important to bring in from a slightly different angle, is you must come across this the old blame game, where you meet somebody who's got something going on and straight away, they blame the childhood, they blame the mum, they blame the
Yeah,
dad, they blame the ex-wife, they blame the brother, sister, they blame next door's cat, the dog, oh
I
my
was
God,
young. I was
they
young.
actually they blame themselves being young. Everything is just blame, blame, blame. It's like, awesome. What are you going to do about it now? Are you going to spend the rest of your life blaming yourself when you were younger? Blaming your dog or blaming your cat or blaming your mom or blaming whatever. Now, I'm not here dismissing people's experiences of what they've been through when they've been younger, with the mum, the dad, the partner, whatever. I'm not. What I'm challenging is what you're going to do now. What you're going to do now in your life to take on accountability and responsibility to move forwards. That's what it comes back to. What are you going to do now? But also, which is a bit challenging a bit further, is whether we like it or not, a lot of those situations, we were also, accountable and responsible for being in them in the first place. Do you know what I mean? We also had a role in those. And I'm taking my own experience, some of the things that happened to me. You know what I mean? It wasn't just them doing it to me. I was continually turning up to that unhealthy interaction or that relationship or that environment, whatever it is. And I'm just as responsible as the other people are in regards to that. And if anything, how much energy does a person waste by constantly blaming other people? And what happens that when people get locked into that blame game? You know what life does? It just repeats the pattern and goes, okay, so you want more of this, do you? Because you keep asking for it. So I'm just going to keep giving it to you. When these things happen to us in our lives, from my personal perspective, I wouldn't change any of the things that I've been through, whether I've caused them or otherwise. Why? Because of what learning and enrichment I've got from them to bring me to where I am now in my life, doing what I'm doing, going forwards. And again, all very at these conversations where I went to again another network event yesterday, and they had some quite high profile individuals. There were four people on like a panel, and they all had incredible stories around adversity and how they'd taken responsibility for that and what they'd gone on to do with their lives and da, da, da. And I love it when the person who's asking the question on the stage goes, does the audience have a question? And I'm like, yeah, I've got a question. I love asking questions that not for me to look good. It's about I love asking that question and seeing the people on stage start to shine. Their eyes kind of light up, and you just
Yeah.
see them glow. It's beautiful. And I sort of said to these four people, if you could get every single person in your life who's been a naysayer and put you down and done this and done the other and put them in this room in front of you of where you are now, what would you say to them? And pretty much the theme across all four of them was I would thank them. I would thank them for what they put me through, for me to learn what I needed to learn to be where I am now. Because that's what it's about, personal responsibility and accountability. Things happen. It's up to you if you want to phrase them as good, bad, or ugly. Fantastic. But what are you going to do about that? What other story are you going to create going forwards? And this almost goes right back around to the beginning of finding ourselves in Mental Health Awareness Week or Mental Health Awareness Month. Brilliant. We've all got a story about where we've got to now. But what are you going to do past that point of awareness? What steps are you going to put into place? Not tomorrow, not next week, not in 6 months' time. What are you going to do right here, right now? And that could be a small step like if you realize you're drinking too much, put the drink down the sink. Just that one drink for tonight. If you realize you like taking cannabis and using a lot of that, we'll stop that joint at 6 p.m. tonight. Start somewhere.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, start somewhere.
Yeah, and when what you just said right there, look, you are going to succeed if The chances are you're going to succeed more if you go into it with a plan.
Yeah.
Okay. If somebody sits there and they say, you know what, I'm done. I'm not drinking anymore. That's it. I'm done. I'm done. And they don't really put any thought behind it. I'm not going to say they're not going to succeed. I have no idea. Maybe they will. But if you put a little bit of thought behind it, if you put a little bit of planning behind it, if you put a little bit of accountability behind it, then your success will rise. You know,
Mm.
the levels of success will rise. I was a 3 packs a day smoker, and I set the time, the date, and my goals. And it was I was putting my cigarette, I was taking and destroying every cigarette that I had left at 6 o'clock on February 6th, and this was 17 years ago. February 6th, 17 years ago. And 6 o'clock came, or 5:50, I went outside, I smoked my last cigarette, I put that out. Haven't touched a cigarette since, but I had a plan. I had a
Mm.
goal and I made it real. I made it something that, you know what? This is what I want. And you got to walk into it knowing this is what you want, not thinking. If you think that you want to quit, you're not, you're not taking it serious. You have to know this is, this is it. I'm done. I'm done making these mistakes. I'm done drinking. I'm done doing this. I can't do this no more. I can't do it to myself. I can't do it to others. I'm done. No, I think the words I think give you an out.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think which is really interesting. Again, this comes up a lot around things is, if you want to make a change, find your why. Find that why. Whatever it is to you, doesn't matter about other people, find your why. Because at times on that journey of making that change, like it's going to get hard. You want to give up or whatever it is. But if your why is solidly in place, the how doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? Because the why is what's important. And that's about everything in life. If you haven't got a why, then what's the point? Do you know what I mean? What's the point? What's the point of even putting anything into action to make that change? It's just not going to happen at all.
Why doesn't have to be big, does it?
No,
I
no.
mean, the why can be, look, I'm sick and tired of waking up hungover. And if you take that serious enough, then that can be what leads you to quitting. But you have to take it serious. You got to take accountability on this.
Mm.
So when it comes to awareness, let's get back to this. We kind of went off topic here. Awareness is something that, look, it's we understand what they're doing. You know, we need to bring awareness to this. But again, awareness is not our problem. Action is our problem, the lack of action. And
Mm.
that's what we need to start focusing on. This mental health awareness, okay, it's great. We've got a mental health problem. I just said that, Joel. Did I change anything in that statement?
No.
No, I didn't change a damn thing in that statement. All I did was tell people what they already know. What do we need to do to make sure that we stop with the awareness and we start taking action?
Mm. Absolutely. Because that's the important piece. Giving, it's great, like you said, going, this is what anxiety is and blah, blah, blah. Fantastic. But what action it, it comes next? What does that look like? What does a person need to do? What do they think they need to do to move that forward? Because that's the important piece.
Some of the actions, Joel, that we can let's let's take and with the remainder of this show, let's maybe come up with some small actions that people can take that are going to make a difference. Okay?
Mm,
Because if we sit there and we tell people, look, you've got to talk. Not everybody is made for talking, okay? And first off, talking to somebody with the mental issue is one of the worst things you can do. Listening is the most important thing you can do.
mm,
Okay?
mm.
You can't talk and tell somebody what their problem is. You need to listen to what their problem is. So first off, don't think that you need to talk to somebody. Listen. And when you listen, put the damn phone down. Okay? And get ready because the stories are ugly. What they're feeling is ugly. And it's not look, you're not going to walk away with a smile on your face most likely. But you need listen to what they're saying. What's the old saying about God gave me two ears and one mouth, and there's a reason for that, you know? So, but that would be my thing. Joel, what would you say people need to do?
I think the thing coming into that is the person in front of you is not broken. They don't need fixing.
No, 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 no,
They've
absolutely
lost the
not.
way. And also, as well, it ain't your job to fix them either. Do you know what I mean? You are there, like you said, to listen. And what's quite interesting is again how all at these conversations are is how men operate. And a lot of the time, men really do operate from logic and reason. And they've got a problem going on, whether it's around mental health or whatever it is. They just need someone to be a sounding board, is what they need. And if you're just willing to listen, if you're a man or a woman and there's a man presenting in front of you that's got an issue going on, just listen. You know, you're there as a sounding board. And if you ask them, what do you think of that? Or how do you think you could do that differently? Or what's come to mind for you? 9 out of 10 times, men will find their own solutions within themselves. That's the best thing you can do for a man is around that. Do you know what I mean? It's just being present, not having a mobile phone in the hand. And also, obviously, what we've been talking about, you're listening. Don't feel you got to jump in. Just let them talk. Let them find that solution themselves a lot of the time. And if they can't find that solution, which can happen, then perhaps do a bit of prior research about what's in your local area around anxiety support or depression, whatever it is, or a website. Have a few on your mind where you can go, well, really appreciate you sharing that with me. Have you thought about whatever it is? I'll leave it with you, and my door's always open scenario. That can be really helpful and really useful. And wait for that person to come back to you. Don't necessarily ask them the next day. So have you rang them up or have you gone on that
I
website or whatever? Because that's not really helpful either.
Yeah, yeah. Did you figure your shit out? Are you good now? I mean, did you get it all out of your system? I think the other important thing, like you said, I do love that. And again, folks, remember, you don't. It's not a terrible thing if you are not a person who can handle listening to them. The worst thing to do is to walk away without doing anything. We need to make sure that, say, look, I'm not in a position in my life right now where I think that I could help you by listening. Okay. Who can I help you find? Who would you talk to right now? You know, that's a question you can ask because there are some things that maybe this person's going through that maybe is a little bit of a trigger for you. Okay. You're struggling with alcohol. Maybe this person's struggling with alcohol too. You know, two people struggling with alcohol where there's a similarity there might not be a lot of answers there because you both have that same fight that's going on. Where the support could be fantastic if you do it right, but if two people are, beating their head over a fence, slamming their face into the wall every time they turn around trying to quit drinking, chances are you're going to have a drinking buddy, not somebody, not a support system. So, you know, but, you don't have to always be that one, but never, ever walk away thinking it's going to work itself out on its own because it don't.
Mm, absolutely. And again, one that I always talk about a lot of the time is the importance of time for yourself. Make that time. A lot of time when things come up for somebody, we're taught, particularly as men, to move. Don't allow that emotion in. Move on. Blah blah blah. Just just sit in that for a period of time. What I mean? Be okay just sitting in it. It's okay. Find a way to express that emotion, whether it's crying or shouting or screaming or whatever, because that's healthy. Because it's men are very external around that, and it's important to find a mechanism what works for you, not trying to avoid it by doing whatever else you're doing. Take that time just to check in with yourself and be okay with that.
There's something that us guys, we love to be fans of sport, you know. One of the things that I do that since I've started doing this, I have noticed that the stress a lot of times is no longer there. But Joel, I go out, I play racquetball. I'm going to tell you this, man, there's nothing like taking and smacking the snot out of that little blue ball every once in a while, just because it doesn't matter how hard I hit it, it doesn't, it relieves some of my own. Now, it also causes a lot of stress, like when I take and I smack that little blue ball and it comes back and hits me in the face, like it did a couple times this morning. But look, guys, there's always things that you can do about that. I mean, and the greatest thing about racquetball is you can take and you can take and hit that ball and get that primal scream and all that other, just that frustration out, and you're in a place where it's okay to do that. Do a little bit of, go weightlifting where people are screaming around you as well, it, if that grunting, that scream, that primal, that feeling is what you need, do it. If you need to throw on headphones, go for a long walk, do it. Go for a walk in a look, your healing is a personal a personal journey. Okay? You are the only one who knows how to heal yourself. All right. Don't let anybody tell you that they know how you feel because that's bullshit. No, they don't. Nobody can tell me how I feel. Nobody can tell Joel how he feels. You know, we might feel similar, and Joel is very, very well versed in ways that, in a program that he's built to help you discover how you feel. Because a lot of times, like we've said, we have to get over that feeling of, well, this isn't right. This isn't what I've been told my entire life, that it's
Mm,
okay to, let my emotions go.
mm. Absolutely. And again, just to expand on that, it's beyond what do is like. I don't just help men, I empower them. I empower them by getting into those unconscious beliefs, which is where it's all at, and making those changes. But coming back to what something you said there as well, things we're talking about here, men, women, whoever's listening to this, we're always talking about the small shifts. Do you know what I mean? Another one which has come to mind is the hell yes or hell no filter. Before you take anything on or you make a decision that's caught you out before, just pause. Pause before you say yes to it. Sit in that for a moment. What's coming up for you? Do you know what I mean? Perhaps what's coming up for you in your gut is this ain't a good idea. You know what happened last time. So just say no. Do you know what I mean? Don't just go along with it because you did it last time. Say no and be okay saying a no. And as you start to do that and check in with yourself in perhaps these sticky areas of your life, you will start to trust yourself again. You will start to tune in with yourself. And that's really, really important because I think a lot of the situations we find ourselves in, we before we just start to make that choice, we kind of get that feeling. I'm not if you ever that exact, but you kind of get that feeling you got going, don't think that's a good idea. You ignore it and do it anyway, or you don't do it, and then you wonder about why you end up then with a problem. If only you would have listened to yourself or checked in with yourself before, that's really important. And then usually what some people are probably thinking is, well, I don't have time. Yeah, you do have time. You're
Yeah.
not using it wisely. If anything, what we're talking about is concrete things you can do. Get out your calendar or go on your mobile phone in your diary and just literally block in every week 1 hour. 1 hour that is your time each week. Not to do any work, not to do any tasks, just for you, just to let yourself reset and remember. It could be literally just sitting outside, or it could be literally reading a book, or it could be just listening to a piece of music, it could be doing a jigsaw. Who cares? It's just your time, yeah, of being with yourself. And
And
that's really important again in building that relationship with yourself. Small shifts, small things that you can do. And again,
and
one of the things with
remember
go on.
and remember when just in addition to that, remember it's okay to change. If that 1 hour needs to be 2 hours, allow it to be 2 hours. Don't pigeonhole yourself into a position where, you know what, this is all I've allowed myself to, to decompress is the 1 hour. No, 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 no. Listen to you. Listen to what you've got to allow yourself to heal. You've got to allow yourself to be yourself.
Absolutely. And that comes back into one of the things we talked about before, is also really important. It's not only making that time for you 1 hour a week or whatever it is, but also why not actually start to speak truth again, to yourself and to other people around you. Pick one moment to say something real, if it's to yourself in the morning in the mirror or your partner or your mate down the pub or whatever it is. Make sure it's real. It could be a feeling, a boundary, a need, whatever it is. Yeah, it doesn't have to necessarily be deep, giving all your soul in that comment, but just be honest. That person who you feel is not doing the best thing in their life and they're a close friend, call it out. Call yourself out, around what you might be doing or not doing. Because again, if you can't be real with yourself, how can you then be real with others? And then how can they then become real with you? It's really important to engage in that. Back to that personal accountability, responsibility, the whole idea of importance of community and growing together.
Yeah. And you know what, guys, we're not trying to take and turn you into some mamby-pamby, Nancy guy, whatever. You know what? If what it takes is when you look in the morning and go, well, what do I need to do to make this day not so shitty?
Yeah,
You know, throw in those cuss words, make it, make yourself feel manly again. We're not asking you to take and go out and hug a kitten, okay? That's not what you need to do. But what you do need to do is you need to let yourself realize that you have heard your entire life that, men don't cry, men don't, you know, show emotions, men don't do this. And that's not true.
mm,
Men are allowed to have feelings. Men are allowed to have emotions. Men are healthier when they feel and when they share emotions, but and like I said, we're not saying you have to share everything because you
no,
don't. You don't have to share everything, but don't keep it inside and make sure that we're not just aware. Make sure that there's action behind that awareness. You have to take responsibility for your own action as well. If you're not feeling good, make sure that you walk up to somebody and say, hey, you know what? I'm feeling a little effed up today. feeling a little effed up today. What do I need to do to take care of this? Maybe if I could just talk to you and let this out a little bit, whether you're a friend, whether you're somebody like, give Joel, scan his code, talk to him, contact us. We'll get a hold of Joel for you. You know,
Absolutely.
just say, hey, you know what? I got some things that I'd like to get off my chest and see what you have to think about it. Look, Joel's never going to say, I know exactly what you feel, because that's not what we're trying to do.
No.
We're just trying to let you know that, there are tons of ways to heal out there. We want to make sure that you are aware of everything that's out there. So, because there's too many good people doing too many good things for you to have to feel like you're stuck.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
Joel, tell us about what you got going on.
Yes, currently it's morning time, Zach. In regards to Rewired for Men, I've got a couple of festivals coming up that I'm going to, so I'm really looking forward to that. Really, getting out there on a stage, sharing what Rewired Men can do and the difference it can make. So I've got two or three of them coming up, which is great. In the process of finalizing some products around Rewired for Men. So I've written a book. So that should be coming out very, very soon. I've got a pack of reflection cards. I've got a workbook that I'm putting out there very soon of all the courses that I've been on. So really just great things which will appear on my website. And obviously my website is rewiredformen.com. So have a look at that where it stands at the moment. So yeah, all this stuff's like it's 6 years in the making, a lot of the written stuff that is finally coming to this point of when it's been ready to be out there. So yeah, really looking forward to it. This year's going well, mate. It really is.
Um, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. One of the things that Joel said is that a little bit earlier is, um, you know, we want to make sure that you understand that if anybody has something that they would like to come onto this show and talk about, get a hold of us. We'd love to have you come and work some things out. Maybe if you have something that you heard us say that you have questions about, or maybe even disagree with, or let's come on and let's talk about it. As long as you can talk like a civil human being, I have no problem you telling me that I'm wrong, because you know what? I've been wrong before many, many times. I have made mistakes. No, I've just made poor choices in my life. But, every everything I say is from what I learned after making those poor choices. And I still learn every day, Joel. I'm still learning about myself every day. So, and I think as long as we keep learning, as long as we keep fighting towards that journey, we can we can grow as men, and we can do what we need to do.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So,
Because that's what it's all
Joel,
about. It's about learning, lifting yourself up, but also helping the people around you. You
yeah,
know, you can't do it alone, can you?
nope, nope, you can't. And you got to remember, you are not the only one facing your problems. Everyone else around you, your wife, your husband, your kids, your parents, your friends, your family, your loved ones, your coworkers. They all struggle when you struggle. Find out why you struggle, and let's stop being aware of it, and let's start taking some action. So, Joel, how do people get a hold of you, brother? Other
Yeah, they
than
can.
going to communitypayitforward.us/rewired for men.
Absolutely. Very much so. That's look at that. You're on the ball there, like it's Zach. That's one way to do it. The way to do it is obviously what Zach's already said. My website, I can get my hand on the right way. Oh, there you are. Down here in the corner, www.rewiredformen.com. But why not? You fancy a virtual coffee to learn more about what I do? Pleasure to see if it's right for you and working with me. Give that code a scan. I'll take you to my online diary and book in. No pressure, 30-minute call. But obviously, if you're over the pond in your district, it's different time zones because I'm in the UK. So there we are.
Well, there's always look there. Time limits are time limits. They are what they are. But the truth is, time is something that you've got to make time for yourself.
Yeah,
And working in an uncomfortable time every once in a while is the best thing you can do to heal yourself. Joel, you have a bunch of fun on your speeches, on your talks. Um, Please, uh, let us know what else you've got going on. If you're recording any of them, why don't you go on ahead and send them to us, and we can maybe play them on the channel.
look at that. I'll bear that in mind, Zach. I'll get my little minions in the audience to record it. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Have them sit there on their little cell phones and just make sure that they're not doing selfies and making funny faces. What the hell if they do it, that's fine too. So, but um Joel, thank you very much, and we will see you again next month when we bring up if you have any suggestions. Zak, Z-A-K at communitypayitforward.us. Zak, Z-A-K at communitypayitforward.us. Send us a question. If you would like to join us, let us know. We will record with you. We can help you answer some questions. If you've got questions, you can bring us the way that you feel about what we're saying. This is not a he and I thing. This is a we thing. We
Mm,
together need to figure this out because we're all aware of what's going on. We have to start taking action. Joel, brother, thank you.
my pleasure as always. Thank you, Zach. Always great doing this with you, making a difference to the lives of other people. That's what it's about.
Well, I love having you here, man. I think this is, this one show every month is one of the things that I really look forward to. I like being able to, it is kind of neat being able to talk to someone else and have that feeling of that, manly expectation, lifting it a little bit because I don't feel like men can't cry. That's not the way that I've felt. I haven't felt that for a long time. But
Mm,
it's nice to be able to talk to somebody else who, can help assure me in some of the things that I struggle with. And I appreciate you working with me on that.
thank you, Zach. Thank you for showing up and being real. That's what it's all about.
All right. We will see you next month.
Yes.
All right.